A horrific crash near Red Rock claims the lives of 2 cyclists. A tentative agreement in the Delico Family Services strike. And the new royal heir receives a name. Good evening and thank you for being with us. A couple from the Cornwall area have been identified as the 2 cyclists killed in that tragic accident yesterday near the town of Red Rock.
65-year-old Robert Booth and 69-year-old Irene Booth were taking part in a cross-country tour from Vancouver before they were involved in a 3-vehicle collision along Highway 1117. The pair were among 20 other cyclists in the group titled Cycle Canada on their way to the East Coast. The couple was traveling eastbound on Highway 1117 around 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon when they were struck by a pickup truck. OPP say the pickup also crossed into the oncoming lane, striking another pickup with a trailer and then a tractor-trailer unit. The 2 cyclists were pronounced dead at the scene. 2 people in the eastbound pickup, a man and a woman from Austin, Texas, were injured and taken to hospital. The remaining group of cyclists took refuge at the Nipigon Arena before continuing on their journey this morning. But there were some who chose not to continue due to the circumstances.
Some of them, it looked like they didn't want to continue on. Some of them felt they had to get out there and do it. And I don't know if some of them were doing it just to keep the spirit of the group going. No one looked really excited about getting out there, but I think they just wanted to continue on and help them forget.
Traffic Staff Sergeant for the OPP, Ken Manty, says they are still early in their investigation, but he says accidents like this should be a reminder for safe highway traveling for both cyclists and drivers.
Cyclists should stay to the right as safely as possible, so that they should be as far to the right as they can get. Drivers should obviously, when they see cyclists, should slow down, give them as much room as safely possible, and that's drivers that are oncoming and approaching them, so from both directions. If you're coming in the opposite direction, you see cyclists, you should also slow down and give them as much room as possible, especially if there's oncoming traffic.
An official with Cycle Canada says their thoughts go out to the family of the victims in the accident, and the OPP spokesperson in Nipigon says charges are pending.
After over 15 hours in negotiations yesterday, Delico Anishinaabeg Family Services and the CEP have reached a tentative agreement. The union will be on the road tomorrow as voting on that new deal takes place across the district. Union representatives say there's nothing new offered in the agreement, but they are satisfied that their concerns have been heard. After a little over 2 weeks on the picket lines, the 350 unionized employees will start voting tomorrow, and they will continue through Monday. If the vote is favorable, the bargaining committee hopes to have it ratified by next week. Local union president Candice Lavalley says the Delico board is looking at voting on the agreement by Friday of this week.
We believe they address the issues, and our bargaining committee is recommending that our members accept this offer. There's some really good language in there, and they'll make a very informative decision.
Lavalley expects to have a final answer later on Monday afternoon, with the hopes of getting employees back on the job by August 6th.
The Treaty 3 Police Service has been given a reprieve at least for another year. The chief of the police force had previously said the service would be disbanding on August 19th due to funding issues. After an annual general meeting in Kenora yesterday, it was decided that Treaty 3 will be keeping its doors open for another year. The election of a new police board and chair has brought some positive movement. The union that represents the Treaty 3 officers says there has also been commitments made by the board to work with the union and its officers. Meanwhile, the Nishnabee Police Service is also facing deficit problems. Acting NAPS Police Chief Bob Herman is projecting a $1.1 million shortfall next year. Herman says the province has been stepping up to cover some federal budget cuts, but it's not enough. With many of their communities being remote, their costs are significant.
Gas has gone up dramatically in the last several years. We've never received funding for that. Our operation costs of maintaining our buildings has gone up because the governments have built us new buildings, but they've never given us the money to actually run them. Our benefit costs have gone up, and that's not unique to First Nations policing. That's evident everywhere in policing.
Herman says there will be negotiations with both levels of government in Ottawa next Friday.
The number of needles handed out each year in Thunder Bay to drug users could be shocking to some. An estimated 700,000 syringes are given out annually by the district health unit. Now that's an exorbitant amount, according to our mayor, who has a controversial idea for a solution. Dennis Ward has more.
Stumbling across a scene like this is not that uncommon in Thunder Bay. Coming upon needles out in the public is the #1 complaint Mayor Keith Hobbs says he receives. He has some thoughts on how to reduce the needles being found, but it is controversial. Hobbs believes maybe it's time Thunder Bay looks at a safe injection site. Right now, the only one in North America is in Vancouver.
We have a huge problem, probably proportionate or worse than Vancouver per capita. If you look at those numbers and you take those to be true, maybe we need to be the second city in North America that has safe injection sites. I get swamped with phone calls about needles being disposed of and people almost stepping on needles, and police are picking them up all the time. Points are picking them up all the time, and it's a blight on our communities.
63,000 needles are handed out by Superior Points each month in Thunder Bay to what's believed to be around 2,000 drug users. Rick Thompson has been working the needle exchange for 15 years and follows the debate over safe injection sites closely.
And looking at what the data tells us about how effective they are in a number of different areas, including reducing ODs, reducing the complications associated with the injection drug use, as well as providing people better access to things like detox or addiction or health facilities.
The Thunder Bay Drug Strategy Coordinator says looking into the feasibility of a safe injection site is on the radar, but not a current priority. There is government approval needed and funding, not to mention support from the public, but Thompson believes that could be achieved.
I think we could get a lot of community support if we let the people know how effective they can be, even in doing something like reducing the amount of drug litter that's in an area they've proven to be effective at.
When it comes to safety, the mayor says there are few things worse than stepping on a dirty needle, and he believes the potential of a safe injection site in Thunder Bay needs to be moved up on the drug strategy's agenda. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
The City of Thunder Bay has received its latest casino payout from the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Commission. This was the first quarterly payment under a new revenue formula announced by the province in May. But it appears any increase for the city coffers is being offset by a drop in casino users. Under the new formula, the city is now receiving a percentage of all table game revenue in addition to money from the slot machines. But OLG officials say because the table games require a lot more staff to run than the slots, the extra revenue for the city is just under $21,000. That brings the total payout for the last quarter to around $620,000. It's an 8% increase from the last quarterly payment, but compared to the same time period last year, there's actually been a slight decrease. OLG officials attribute it to a variety of possible factors, such as lower tourism numbers and lower gaming revenues.
It's Natural Resources and the Martin Falls First Nation met behind closed doors in Thunder Bay today. The topic of discussion was how to address environmental concerns with the mining giant's planned chromite mine. The federal environmental assessment process for the Cliffs project is currently before the courts, and the chief of Martin Falls says today's meeting was about finding a framework that works for government, industry, and communities near the Ring of Fire. Chief Eli Muniz says under the guidelines of the provincial and federal EA process, his community would get less than 10 minutes to present their concerns. One of the major issues surrounds chemicals that could be emitted from any mining site.
We'd like to know what chemical deposits that will come out of there. Is it going to be a danger to the river and to the air, and to the animals that live there, and to the hunters that use the land, etc.
Muniz says sitting down with the company can address some of the concerns nearby communities have. Cliffs Vice President Bill Boer commends Martin Falls for focusing on concerns rather than the process that's been slowing things down, like provincial negotiations.
When those issues are resolved, we'll be able to actually move forward. But when we made that announcement, we said this was more of an acknowledgement of where we are kind of stuck in the process than any decision to stop the process on our part. And I think you can tell by us being here and working hard with the community that we're doing everything we can to move forward.
Boer says he's interested in hearing the objectives of the recently appointed provincial negotiator Frank Iacobucci and Mattawa negotiator Bob Ray.
More testimony today about a leaking roof that caved in with deadly consequences at a mall in Northern Ontario. The owner told an inquiry he always intended to fix it. Johanna Rumliotis reports from Elliot Lake.
The site of Elliot Lake's old shopping center is now a relic, a place that collapsed after years of water damage, killing 2 women.
No comments.
For a second day in a row, the mall's owner arrived to a barrage of questions about what he did or did not do to repair a roof that had been leaking for years. Bob Nazarian claims he looked and looked for a solution as soon as he bought the property in 2005.
My whole concentration was how to repair this roof so I can have dignity and have my tenants happy and bring new tenants in the mall.
But in often exasperated exchanges, the inquiry's lead lawyer challenged Nazarian on how hard he really tried.
2 leaks footwear, 2 leaks pet, 1 leak houseware.
Rhyming off leaks at the Zellers store alone, Peter Doody pointed out the town considered the damage at Zellers a fire hazard and ordered fireproofing that Nazarian never complied with.
You were ordered by the fire chief to do it, and you chose not to do it, right?
Sir,
Right?
sir.
Isn't that right?
It was wrong.
Nazarian shot back.
Our logic was we have to fix the leak before we spray the fireproofing.
Nazarian insisted he kept trying to find a permanent fix to the leaky roof and the money to finance repairs in the range of $1 million. But when it came to details of key meetings, key memos, he was often short of answers.
I don't remember, sir. I don't recall. I don't recall this. I don't remember, sir.
Some residents have even made T-shirts mocking everyone at the inquiry who has said as much.
There's just too many people that are saying, I don't recall, because I do recall. And there's a lot of people in this community recall.
Nazarian testified he was even willing to use his own personal line of credit to get the job started and that he begged the city for a tax break to help. The mall's roof collapsed before he was able to get the money together. Johanna Rumliotis, CBC News, Elliot Lake.
A 13-year-old boy is facing charges following a break-in at a Dawson Road lottery store. Staff discovered the break-in yesterday morning and alerted police. A quantity of cigarettes and bus passes were missing from the business. Police say the suspect was apprehended on Picton Street yesterday afternoon. He's charged with possession of stolen property and breach of probation. Police have also charged a Thunder Bay First Nations man following a drug seizure yesterday. The suspect and a female companion were observed getting off a Greyhound bus in the Current River area. When approached by officers, a brief scuffle ensued. A subsequent search turned up over 240 grams of cocaine valued at $24,000. A 31-year-old man is charged with possession for the purposes of trafficking and resisting arrest.
Traffic along Oliver Road had to be diverted today after a 3-car accident brought emergency vehicles to the scene. The collision occurred shortly after noon at the intersection of Gulf Links Road and Oliver Road. 2 cars and 1 truck were involved. The 2 westbound lanes were shut down as Thunder Bay Police conducted their investigation. There was minor damage to 2 of the vehicles, and 1 woman was taken to the hospital with minor injuries. Police say charges are pending.
A Thunder Bay woman is hoping to bring positive change to the Chippewa Wildlife exhibit. After recent concerns about the welfare of a moose at the park, Sarah Rizzo hopes her petition will make the idea of a wildlife rehabilitation center a reality. During a recent visit to the exhibit, Rizzo says she became concerned about the conditions, and after speaking with others, she found she wasn't alone. She started both a petition and a Facebook page to bring a voice to those concerns. She hopes to work with the city and the exhibit to implement some positive changes. Rizzo says with the animals having lived in the park their entire lives, releasing them isn't an option. Instead, her petition calls for a shift in values towards conservation and wildlife rehabilitation.
I think times are definitely changing and people are more concerned with those things now. Simply having animals on display in cages for the sake of staring at them doesn't really fly anymore. I think people want to see a purpose behind the animals being there. And I think if maybe we shifted from housing animals long-term for the sake of our entertainment to housing them short-term for rehabilitation purposes, it would be a better use of the funding and of the space available.
Rizzo says better maintenance, more stimulating activities for the animals, and an educational component could add to the quality of the proposed rehabilitation center. Rizzo's petition to revamp the Chippewa Wildlife exhibit can be found on Facebook and at change.org.
A group of over 100 people from across the far north are gathering in Thunder Bay this week to discuss solutions when it comes to the region's food system challenges. The Anishinaabe Nation Food Symposium has been held in our city for the past 4 years. It's a chance to discuss a sustainable, accessible, and nutritious food system for the health of First Nations people. As that population begins to grow, so do the rates of obesity and heart disease in remote communities. Today's workshops include discussions and presentations from NAN delegates.
I think that's what the whole part of these types of activities are, is to bring people together and to share and to educate each other and to learn about the issues and to solve those problems, to try and bring positive feedback in.
The NAN Food Symposium wraps up tomorrow.